No one knows when the first grave well was made. There's no telling when they started relative to when they were first recorded, roughly 8 years ago, and they were initially mistaken for many things: sinkholes, forgotten catacombs, the trails of overzealous body harvesters. We still don't know what determines which corpses create them and when, if indeed the corpses are the ones doing the creation. There's much we still don't understand, but there is also much we can observe. A grave well is a phenomenon in which the remains of a human being, after being laid to rest in the traditional Western fashion, approximately 6 feet underground, encased in a coffin or other enclosure, are removed or replaced by a chasm of the same dimensions, extending directly into the earth. The interval after entombment for a grave well to form varies, from overnight to nearly a year. All attempts to find a commonality in the class, creed, or virtues of those affected have been inconclusive. Cremated ashes are affected as well, as are stillborn infants. Once their prevalence became known, it didn't take long for grave wells to become curses to some and amusements to others. Families whose late loved one was replaced with a grave well took to the press, pointing the finger down at faceless thieves or up at divine intervention. Amateur spelunkers and pranksters alike formed lines to rappel down a fresh grave well, hoping for some revelation at the bottom and accolades upon arising. In all instances, however, the burial vessel itself was never located, and neither was a bottom. Only an ever-descending pit, walls of ragged soil and stone, stretching past the length of any daredevil's cable or courage. For a time, until the old custom of shielding a plot with iron bars regained prominence, accidental falls into an unmarked grave well were common. It was perhaps inevitable then that someone would enter a grave well without intending to leave. A widow, presumably, or a troubled youth seeking final comfort in the macabre. As ever with such milestones, the first instance may never be identified. But what's happened in recent months may make that matter. See, as we've come to find out, grave wells don't go straight down after all. After a certain length, anywhere from mere yards to an eighth of a mile, they turn. Some angle into a gradual slope or take a hard right through bedrock, while others twist and curve, weaving mazes of air through solid dirt. We have remote recording technology to thank for this discovery, courtesy of professionals tasked with documenting the ongoing conditions of various grave wells, be it for scientific or spiritual purposes. This was due in no small part, however, to signs which were already impossible to deny. Buildings sagging into the grass. Roads clotted with cars, once collapsed sewer junctions began to take traffic down with them. Water, electricity, and fuel harder to come by as subterranean lines rupture. So much of what makes society run depends on the land beneath, and yet that's where most of everybody who's ever been now resides. All of these bodies, all of these heavy forms cutting intersections across the foundations of our world. They're undead, in effect, but also an inverted rapture, a network of loss, seeds of emptiness, leaving a wake in the nautical sense. Where the living create, it seems, the deceased take, reduce, vacate. Not out of malice, we must believe, but by simple virtue of their departure. The same as a hollowness suddenly punctured will pop a balloon or crush a submersible. Left alone, they may burrow into infinity, but should we follow, they'll bring ruin. It's not for us to understand how or why they came to leave as they did. It's only upon us to fill their absence, and not with all-consuming grief, but rather abundant life. To let those long gone bury us would be not to fill a void, but rather to expand it. There's just no room for the dead to take us down with them.